Hello, we are here with Evelyn Effinger, who is going to talk with us today about early childhood education. Evelyn is the owner of Hammondsport Children's Center. And Evelyn, it's really wonderful to have you here and hear about childcare in our region, in the Southern Tier and Finger Lakes region, and also how things are playing out for you as a childcare specialist in the time of a pandemic. I'm really glad to have you here, Evelyn. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me. I'm always happy to talk about childcare and children's issues. And to be able to talk with you and support you in your campaign. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, thanks. Okay, tell us about Hammondsport Children's Center. Tell us first, where is Hammondsport geographically? We've got a huge region we're looking at here with this state Senate district. So where do you fall in Hammondsport?
Well, I don't want to create any unnecessary competition, but I'm at the foot of Keuka Lake, the pearl of the Finger Lakes region, right? We like to think that Keuka is the prettiest, and Hammondsport is the village at the foot of Keuka Lake, the southern end of Keuka Lake. And the Hammondsport Children's Center is right in the village. It's in a big, beautiful old home. And I was so happy to find it. And, when I decided that it was time to create a high quality program in my community.
That's wonderful. How did you get started in this?
Well, I've been in child care and child development all my career, which is over 30 years now, I hate to admit. But I started off as a social worker here in Steuben County, visiting with families in rural Steuben County, and working, in childcare and in Head Start, and always teaching parenting and those kinds of things. And then, of course, I had my own children, and then the parenting classes become a whole nother story, right? When you have the experience for yourself. But then I moved away and worked at the state level, and at the national level, I've always done training and technical assistance on what is high quality childcare. For a decade, I ran a statewide initiative in New York to improve the quality of childcare for infants and toddlers. So this is my special love, our little babies, and making sure that we understand what they need in childcare setting and how to make sure that they get the best possible start in life. So after working all around the country,
I was going to say, sometimes for parents, that's the hardest childcare to find, I think, is for the really youngest infants and toddlers. There's a lot of childcare opportunities out there that don't include, infants and toddlers.
Right. Well, it's important for babies for the numbers to be small. So, for there to be, just one caregiver for a small number of babies. So that's the challenge for childcare programs, to enroll lots of infants and toddlers, because they have to have enough staffing to do that. And because babies need this individual attention.
I know I'm on the board of the Tompkins-Cortland Community College Foundation, and at TC3, which is the community college that serves kind of Tompkins, Cortland, and Tioga counties, we recently refurbished our child care center and added more slots for that very early childhood. And that really is something that so many young parents, or parents of young children, need, is those very early slots. Why does quality?
The schools? Yeah. Well, let me just say, as the schools are doing more with pre-K, what's happening for the early childhood field is that the 4-year-olds are now being served in public schools, across the state. So it makes it better and more necessary for childcare programs to open more slots for infants and toddlers, to not be caring so much for the 3 and 4-year-olds as they go off to school, but to help parents at the other end of the spectrum and caring for infants and toddlers.
So. And why does that quality matter so much in the first few years of life? What is it that the children are gaining so much?
Well, I think that a lot of people think, they're little babies. The learning doesn't really start until we get closer to school or preschool years. But in fact, we know that almost 90% of brain development is happening in the first 3 years of life. So the early experiences that they have matter. Let me get back to that.
Okay. 90% of brain for your whole life, 90% of your brain development happens in the first few years of life.
Yes. And, in the beginning of life, there are just millions and trillions of neural connections developing all the time because everything is new for babies. So all of these experiences are what, their brain is going, taking it all in and making neural connections. And then, if you look at the brain of a 2 or 3-year-old, it's just dense with neural connections. As experience helps form build the brain, then what happens is that the brain, there's natural pruning. So what you use is what gets saved and matters, and that creates the foundation for you. And what you don't use falls away. And that's the natural process. But we want to make sure that those good connections stay strong, and that babies are, this is really all about school readiness. When we think about the foundations for learning, it's happening in the earliest years.
Okay, so I'd like to turn quickly to, we are on day 1 of the gradual lifting of the pause across New York State. And it's not every region that is going back to business today. I think there's 5 regions across the state that have now been allowed to begin reopening. Some businesses that weren't essential businesses are happening during the pandemic are now starting to reopen. But you, as a childcare center, you were an essential business all the way through the COVID pandemic shutdown period, right? So how has the shutdown affected your center, as we begin this reopening today? What changes are you seeing? How have you been affected over the last, I guess it's been 8 weeks of New York on pause?
Right. Well, let's see. On March 15th, I had about 20 children enrolled. I'm licensed for just 14 children, but many families just come on a part-time basis. So we were motoring along and doing well, fully enrolled. And then March 15th came along and my numbers dropped to like 3 or 4 children. So, most of the parents at that point in time were told to stay home, to work from home. And so they're either are working from home or they're out of work. And so the children are at home. I still am I've been open the whole time. I'm still caring for the children of some essential workers, people who have been able to maintain their jobs.
Because you're an essential business too. As a child care center, that's essential, is to have a place for our children to be. Yeah.
Right. So, but I was up and motoring. I had 3 people working with me at the center. And when you get down to 2 or 3 children, it's like I didn't have enough work for everyone. So I've had to lay off staff, and they're in the halls. I hope that everybody will come back here as as we start to figure out what the new normal is. But and I have staff person here with me today, helping so that I can be upstairs and talking with you today. But we're trying to keep it. It was a hard hit for me to have to lay off staff and for families to be at home. And the families are just juggling as best they can. Some are teachers, so they're at home with their own children, plus they're running virtual lessons for their classes. Some are I have people who work in the wine and food industry that have been laid off, or they're doing very limited work or takeout work and trying to juggle being with the children and keeping their livelihood. I have people who work in medical offices that have just been closed. So it's been a difficult time for families, I think.
It certainly has been. And each family's challenge, I think, has been a little bit unique and a little bit different depending on, whether one parent or both parents are working from home or what's happening. There's just so many different ways this can play out. Okay, so you had to lay off some of your staff. And then you don't know if all of your children will be coming back or not, or what's going to be happening there. What are you looking ahead to as you look at reopening? How will you decide who to bring back?
I'm like, come one, come all, right? I want all my families to come back as they need it. Childcare is it's an underfunded initiative. So it's expensive for parents to pay for it. It's, they don't want to pay for it if they don't need to use it. So although I think many people could use a respite now and would like to just have a day to, to do their work without the children in the room. And it's also a nice experience for the kids to be here. We run a high quality program. They want their babies to be here and socializing and, taking advantage of the programming that we run here and eating quality food and playing outside and doing all the adventures that we offer at Hammondsport Children's Center. But they don't want to come back too soon. They have to wait and see what happens with their own work. And, if their children, what kind of a group can children be in? Fortunately, my program is small. So, we only have healthy children here, and we practice lots of sanitation and hand washing, and you can't keep social distance when you have infants and toddlers, but we sanitize and wash hands and make sure that people are well in order to come and attend.
I'm having my own parenting from home moment right now as we record. I am in the room in our house that has the printer in it, and I have a 15-year-old who is trying to do her schoolwork upstairs, and I just heard the printer start to go off, which probably means that my 15-year-old is going to burst into this room very shortly to come pick up the whatever materials she just had printed. And so that's why I put myself on mute, so you all wouldn't have to hear the printer running in the background. But those are the sort of challenges that I think parents are now facing right now, as we're all working from home and also trying to navigate our childcare at the same time.
Yeah, and children thrive best when they have a routine. And so this has upset everybody's routine. They're all and especially when you have little infants and toddlers and you've just gotten used to them, or they've just gotten used to getting up, getting their jammies off and getting in the car and arriving at Miss Evelyn's house. And now that's all different, so, and probably they'll just start to adjust to the new routine at home, and it'll change again. So,
well, and I think grown-ups kind of like a routine too, I think that's human nature to like to know what we're planning for. And that's maybe one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing right now, is that it is so hard to pre-plan. We want answers, right? We want to know, is my business an essential business? Is my business going to reopen in phase 1 or phase 2 of the reopening? Where am I going to fit? And so many parents won't know that information, and their childcare will be kind of in flux until that, and then that affects your business, right? So
yeah, and all the way down the line, it's this trickle effect. I've been able to keep the lights on and keep feeding the children and caring for them. I'm doing it on my own. I've applied for some of the small business loan assistance programs, but I'm just in a queue, just waiting to hear whether or not there'll be any help. I couldn't take advantage of the payroll programs because I'm not in a position to bring staff back until I have children. So it's all very connected and a little bit challenging to know what's the right way to go ahead. But this program was my dream to do this for the community and to create this. And I'm really will be stubborn about making sure that it exists and it is here. I think every community needs high quality care, and it's so critical as a support for families, but also kind of an economic support for the community. I mean, we employ people, we buy services locally. I shop across the street at the grocery store. And so it all really matters for a community to have a program like this one. And, we have to figure out how to protect it and keep it going.
What can the community do? I don't know. Can we as a community do anything to support you? I really hear what you're saying, that you're calling into these federal government programs and you're sitting on hold for forever. It is a challenge that so many small business owners are experiencing right now. You call the SBA and I have a small business discussion group. We've been meeting once a week and just having a peer-to-peer conversation where we allow business owners to share tips back and forth. And one of the tips that's come up over and over is just keep watching your account, because sometimes, if you've applied for an SBA loan, you won't go to any communication from the federal government about what's been happening, but then all of a sudden the loan will show up in your bank account. So just keep watching. That sure doesn't seem like an efficient way to to run a government or run a loan program, but it seems to be the advice that we're hearing from a lot of people. But what do you need, short of getting our federal government in gear to actually do their job? What can the community do to support you right now, so that you can continue providing childcare to the rest of us?
Well, I've done a couple of little community projects. I'm very community minded and want to make sure that the Hammondsport Children's Center is here and embedded in the village and here for families. And so we've done some things that are, have an open play day or an open house, or come and see the program, or come play with us in the park. If we go off site, we sometimes walk to the park and that sort of thing. So we had this great idea about having a children's center auction with extra equipment. And so I invited everybody. I said, listen, while you're home with the virus, why don't you clean out your toys and your books and your play clothes and donate them to the center, and we'll have a big community yard sale at the opening day of Little League, is what it had been planned for. Well, guess what? Now there's no Little League, right? So I have a basement full of equipment that we're going to have an auction and a yard sale at some point in the spring when life returns to normal. Or when we can come out and, I don't know if we'll ever have the same normal. We'll have a new normal. And
Evelyn, what kind of stuff do you have down there? Can people start auctioning on this now, maybe virtually or something? I don't know. If someone were to pick up the phone
now
and
you're challenging me again with a virtual
help raise
thing.
funds.
But
what do you think?
That's a good idea, and we'll have to just see if we're going to be able to put it all out in the yard and do it in that fashion. But we have all children's equipment, clothes and toys and books, and we had wanted to do a great thing with Little League where we were going to have a baseball exchange, like bring your old cleats and get new cleats, or bring a glove and get a new glove. And so we were trying to really support Little League and work with that, but I guess we're not going to have Little League this year.
Oh, that is really too bad. That is really too bad.
I know.
Yeah. Well, what about you personally, Evelyn? How do you keep yourself going in this pandemic? You've got a lot of people relying on you. You've got parents, you've got children. What do you do to help keep yourself going through this?
Well, I feel fortunate in the fact that I do have children coming and going. So I see people, and and I reach out to the families that are not with me right now and just say, how are things going? And if you just need a respite day, feel free to drop your child off. We're healthy and well here. And it's a small group. Or, if there's a day that I have no children, I'll invite people to say, hey, you could have the place all to yourself today. So I'm just trying to stay here for families and to continue to do the good work that we're doing, and get out there in the community and let people know that, we exist. And we're looking forward to the summer season. Last year I ran some programs where we would be open for tourists that are coming to the Finger Lakes area. So if you want to come
like
to
a one-day drop-in kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. You want to go on a wine tour, but you don't want to bring your toddler with you, bring them to Hammondsport Children's Center, and the children can play for the day and have a fun, appropriate experience for them while you're on your boat or in the wineries, or enjoying some of the wonderful things we have here. So I hope that we'll have a tourist season again in the summer, and we'll be here to support that.
That's fantastic. One of the things that I have noticed about this pandemic and how we've all pulled together is that there really are so many opportunities for recognizing the grace of living in a community together, right? And how many of us are stepping up to support one another. We really are all in this together. And what you're describing right now is certainly sure true. We can't get through this without watching out for each other. I mean, that's exactly what the whole New York State on Pause was all about, was making sure that we were slowing the pace of this virus so that we didn't all pour into the hospitals at the same time and all, really stretch the resources so we could help each other and get through this together. I think there's so many opportunities for that. Is there any final thing you'd like to tell our audience about being a community leader in a pandemic? I really admire what you're doing, Evelyn. I think that you're really staying true to your mission of serving children and babies and toddlers, even in a pandemic, and it's extraordinary. What's one final thing you'd like to let us know about?
Well, I think I really always appreciate the opportunity to talk to people about the fact that quality matters for little ones, and I've been at this my whole career and spent time teaching across the country on what babies need in childcare. So it's really a challenge. It's fun for me. It's hard work, but to be providing that service here for the little village of Hammondsport and to know that, we're making a difference. I decided to come back and do it when my own grandchildren were born. And I thought, well, there's more children than, just my own grandchildren that need this service. And so it's a pleasure for me to be back in my community and providing this for people and helping people to understand the importance of the early years and that, it matters what their experiences are. And I love working so much with young families and helping them. So hard to juggle everything that they are up against, working and trying to do the best by their kids and all of that. So it's nice for me to be able to be here as an extra grandma and an extra community person to help ease the way.
Well, I know personally as a working mom, as someone who has worked through my children's childhood, that the people who take care of my children are really truly special and have a really special place in my life. So I appreciate what you're doing, taking care of our most precious little resources. So thank you very much for doing what you're doing, Evelyn.
Well, Thank you. And good luck in your campaign. We're rooting for you.
Well, thank you very much. We need more focus on the kind of good work you're doing. I appreciate it. Take good care, Evelyn, and we'll keep on catching up with you as this progresses.
Okay. Thanks, Leslie. Take care.
Talk to you later.